a deadly snakebite, a frozen mountain, and a young healer abandoned to die. White Eagle had only one mission, to save the sick children of her tribe, but fate had other plans. Poison spread through her body as the snow became her final resting place. Just when all hope was gone, a mysterious cowboy found her unconscious in the wilderness. But saving her life was only the beginning. Their impossible bond would challenge two worlds, face deadly wolves, and change their destinies forever. Stay until the end, because this is a true story of courage, sacrifice, and a love that no one saw coming. Watch Love in the Wild West on the next video app as soon as possible. Please subscribe to my channel. Here is the English translation of the script, adapted for natural flow and storytelling rhythm. The snow covered the mountains like an endless white mantle. The winter sun shone brightly, but the cold cut into the skin like 1,000 invisible needles. White Eagle rode alone along the frozen trail. Her horse, a black Mustang named Thunder, snorted clouds of vapor as he carefully navigated the frost-covered rocks. She was the youngest healer of her tribe, only 22 springs old, yet her hands already knew the secrets of healing plants and life-restoring roots. That morning she had set out before dawn. The children in her village were sick. A strange fever had been consuming them for 3 days, and their reserves of medicinal herbs had run dry. She needed to find the bloodroot, that red plant that only grew in the cracks of the highest rocks. It was dangerous to climb alone, but there was no other option. Her grandmother, the wise elder of the village, had warned her before she left, "Be careful, granddaughter. The mountains in winter keep dark secrets. Not everything that shines under the sun is safe." White Eagle had smiled confidently. She had known these mountains since childhood. She had walked these paths hundreds of times. But destiny has strange ways of reminding us that we never truly control anything. Note to viewers: don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and write in the comments which country you are watching from. It makes us very happy. White Eagle dismounted near a rock formation she knew well. There, among the gray stones, grew the plants she needed. She knelt in the snow, clearing the ice with her bare hands. Her fingers were red from the cold, but she didn't care. She thought of the sick children, of their small bodies burning with fever. She found the first roots and stored them in her leather pouch. She needed more, much more. She moved toward another larger rock, with a deep crack at its base. There, she had seen the best plants grow in previous summers. She leaned close to the crack to see the roots better. She did not see the snake hidden among the stones. The reptile struck her exposed ankle. She instinctively pulled her foot back and saw 2 small holes in her skin. Dark blood oozed out slowly. A rattlesnake emerged from the crack. Its body coiled, its rattle sounding like a belated warning. The reptile had been hibernating in the rock, seeking the little heat the sun provided. White Eagle knew perfectly what that bite meant. She perhaps had an hour before the venom reached her heart. She stood up, stumbling. Her vision was already beginning to blur. Rattlesnake venom was fast, especially in winter, when a cold body couldn't fight it off with the same strength. She tried to walk toward Thunder, but her legs failed her. She fell to her knees in the snow. She didn't whisper, "Not yet. The children need me," but her body did not respond to her will. The venom spread through her veins like rivers of icy fire, a terrible contradiction consuming her from within. Thunder neighed nervously, sensing his owner's fear. The horse approached, nudging her gently with his muzzle, as if trying to lift her. White Eagle managed to grab the reins. With her last effort, she tried to mount the horse, but her arms had no strength. She fell backward onto the white snow. The blue sky spun above her. The bright sun turned into shapeless spots of light. The cold of the ground penetrated her back, but she barely felt it anymore. "Grandmother," she murmured with trembling lips, "forgive me. I won't be able to return." Thunder, frightened by the smell of him and the fear, did what his instinct dictated. He ran. The black horse disappeared among the trees, leaving White Eagle completely alone in the vast white immensity of the mountains. She closed her eyes, A hot tear rolled down her frozen cheek. She thought of her village, of the sick children waiting for her return, of her grandmother who would watch the horizon every evening hoping to see her come back. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the wind. "I'm so sorry." Darkness began to envelop her, the pain of the bite mixed with the numbness of the cold. Her breathing became slower, more shallow. Somewhere in her mind, which still functioned, she heard the sound of horse hooves, but surely it was a hallucination. No one rode these mountains in winter. No one would come looking for her. She was completely alone, or so she believed, because at that precise moment, less than a kilometer away, a man with eyes as blue as the winter sky was riding along the same trail, following the tracks of a black horse running without a rider. His name was Samuel, and without knowing it, he was about to find something that would change his life forever. The snow continued to shine under the sun. The wind whispered among the pines, and destiny, that invisible weaver of impossible stories, had just joined two paths that should never have crossed. But that is love. It arrives when you least expect it, and sometimes it begins with a snake bite. Samuel had left his cabin before dawn. He had to take supplies to the nearest town, a 2-day journey he made every month when winter allowed. He was a solitary man. 32 years living in these mountains had turned him into someone who preferred the silence of nature to the empty conversations of towns. His horse, a gray palomino named Lightning, knew the way by memory. Samuel barely needed to guide him. As he rode, he thought about his life, about the decisions that had brought him here, about the family he had left behind in the East, seeking a simpler, more authentic life. He had no regrets. This wild land had given him peace. It had taught him that true wealth was not in gold or possessions, but in the freedom to wake up every morning under an infinite sky. The sun was already high when he saw something strange on the trail. A black horse was running toward him without a rider. The animal was terrified. Its eyes showed the white of panic. Its body trembled in a way Samuel immediately recognized. Something bad had happened. Samuel stopped Lightning and waited. The black horse approached, snorting, moving nervously from side to side. It was a beautiful, well-cared-for Mustang. Its saddle was different from those used by cowboys. It had designs Samuel had seen before in Native American camps. "Calm down, friend," Samuel said in a soft voice, extending his hand toward the animal. "Calm down. What happened? Where is your owner?" The horse neighed as if answering a question it could not answer with words. Samuel made a decision at that moment. The supplies could wait. If someone was in trouble in these mountains, every minute counted. He followed the black horse's tracks in the snow. They were easy to trace, deep and clear against the immaculate white ground. He rode for 15 minutes up the trail leading to the high rocks. It was an area he knew well. In summer, he had seen native women collecting medicinal plants here. Then he saw her, a dark figure against the white snow, motionless, small. Samuel spurred Lightning and arrived in seconds. He dismounted before the horse had fully stopped. It was a young native woman. Her bronzed skin contrasted with the unnatural pallor of her lips. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was barely visible. "Miss," said Samuel, kneeling beside her, "can you hear me?" There was no response. Samuel examined her quickly. His years in the mountains had taught him to recognize signs of danger. He saw her right ankle swollen with 2 small, red marks. Snakebite. His heart raced. He knew exactly what that meant, and he knew he didn't have much time. He took out his handkerchief and tied it firmly above the injured ankle to slow the venom's advance toward the heart. Then he searched his saddlebag for the dried herbs he always carried for emergencies. He chewed them quickly until they formed a paste and pressed it onto the wound, covering the 2 small holes left by the snake's fangs. Finally, he tore a piece of his own shirt and bandaged the ankle firmly, ensuring the herbal poultice stayed in place. The woman moaned softly. Her eyelids fluttered. "It's okay," said Samuel, although he knew she probably didn't understand his language. "You are safe. I'm going to help you." Carefully, he lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, like a wounded bird. Her head fell against his chest, her hair black as night, brushing his chin. For a moment Samuel remained still. There was something in this woman's face that struck him deeply. A wild, natural beauty, without artifice. Even on the brink of death, there was a dignity in her features that left him breathless. He shook his head. This was not the time for such thoughts. He placed her on Lightning with infinite care, mounting behind her to hold her. The black horse followed without needing guidance, as if understanding that its owner was in good hands. Samuel knew of a shelter nearby, an abandoned cabin that hunters used in autumn. It had a fireplace, solid walls, and, most importantly, was only 10 minutes away. He rode as fast as he dared without risking a fall. The woman in his arms trembled violently now, her body fighting the venom. "Hold on," Samuel whispered. "Just a little longer. Don't give up." He didn't know if she could hear him, didn't know if his words meant anything, but he kept talking as if his voice could be the thread keeping her connected to life. They arrived at the cabin. Samuel dismounted with the woman in his arms and kicked the door open. The interior was cold and dark, but dry. There was a makeshift bed in a corner covered with old furs. A stone fireplace occupied the back wall. He deposited the woman on the furs delicately. She remained unconscious, her breathing weak but steady. Samuel worked quickly. He found dry wood next to the fireplace and lit a fire. The flames grew, filling the room with golden light and warmth. He returned to the woman, touched her forehead. It was burning with fever. "The real battle begins now," Samuel muttered to himself. He knew the next few hours would be critical. The fire crackled in the fireplace, filling the small cabin with comforting warmth. Outside, the sun began to descend behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. But Samuel had no time to admire the beauty of the sunset. The woman on the bed shook uncontrollably. Her body fought against the venom with all its strength. But the battle was far from over. Samuel had done everything he knew how to do. He had cleaned the wound again, bandaged it with clean cloths he found in his saddlebag, and kept the fire burning constantly. Now only waiting remained. He sat on the floor next to the bed, watching the woman's face in the light of the flames. Her features were beautiful, with high cheekbones and lips that probably smiled easily in better times. Who was she? What was she doing alone in the mountains in the middle of winter? Samuel noticed the leather pouch hanging from her belt. Carefully he opened it and found roots and herbs, medicinal plants he recognized from his own basic survival knowledge. "A healer," he murmured with respect. "You were helping your people," moaned, her head moving from side to side. Her lips murmured words in a language Samuel didn't fully understand, but whose tone he recognized. She was calling someone, perhaps her family, perhaps her ancestors. Samuel took a cloth, wet it with water from his canteen, and placed it gently on the woman's burning forehead. "Calm down," he whispered. "I'm here, you're not alone." The hours passed slowly. Night fell over the mountains, bringing with it a more intense cold. The wind howled outside, hitting the cabin walls like a hungry wolf seeking entry. Samuel fed the fire constantly, ensuring the temperature inside remained warm. Every time the flames diminished, he added more wood. Every time the woman trembled harder, he covered her with another layer of furs. He didn't sleep for a minute. Near midnight, the fever reached its peak. The woman burned as if she had fire inside her veins. Her breathing became rapid and shallow. Her body glistened with sweat. Samuel felt fear for the first time. "Don't go," he said, taking her hand in his. "You've fought so hard to get here. Don't give up now." He spent the next few hours talking to her. He told her about his life, about the mountains he loved, about the stars shining outside at that moment. He didn't know if she could hear him, but he needed to fill the silence with something other than the crackling of the fire. "When I was a child," Samuel said, "my mother told me stories about guardian angels. She said we all have one, someone who watches over us from the shadows. I never believed much in those stories." He paused, looking at the woman's face. "But today, when I found your horse on the trail, I felt something strange, as if someone had guided me to you, as if I were destined to find you." The woman didn't respond, but Samuel swore her breathing became a little calmer. The darkest hours arrive before dawn, the moment when the human body is weakest, when life and death dance their most intimate dance. Samuel did not let go of her hand for a second. Finally, when the first rays of sun began to filter through the cracks in the door, something changed. The woman stopped trembling. Samuel held his breath, fearing the worst, but then he saw her chest rising and falling with a more normal rhythm. Her face, previously contracted in pain, relaxed slowly. The fever was breaking. He touched her forehead with the back of his hand. It was still hot, but not burning like before. The venom was losing the battle. Samuel let out a long sigh, releasing all the tension he had accumulated during the night. His eyes filled with tears that he didn't try to hide. "You made it," he whispered. "I knew you would." He allowed himself to close his eyes for a moment, just a moment. The exhaustion of the sleepless night finally caught up with him. When he opened them again, the sun was fully entering through the window, and two eyes as dark as night were looking directly at him. The woman was awake. Samuel froze. Those eyes contained depths he couldn't comprehend. Fear, confusion, but also something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or gratitude. "Good morning," said Samuel softly, making no sudden movements. "Don't be afraid, you are safe." The woman tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Samuel immediately offered her his canteen. She hesitated for a moment, looking alternately at the water and the face of the man offering it. Finally, thirst won. She drank slowly, each sip returning life to her exhausted body. When she finished, her eyes met Samuel's again. And in that moment, in that small cabin lost in the mountains, two completely different worlds met for the first time. Neither knew what to say, but neither wanted to look away. White Eagle could not take her eyes off the man in front of her. His eyes were blue like the summer sky. His face was covered by a several-day-old beard, but there was kindness in his features. A kindness she didn't expect to find in someone like him, a white man. Her first instinct was fear. All her life she had heard stories about the foreigners coming from the East. Stories of broken promises, of stolen lands, of a people who respected neither nature nor those who lived in harmony with it. But this man had saved her. White Eagle remembered fragments of the previous night. The cold of the snow under her back, the darkness enveloping her, and then a voice, a warm voice calling her from a distance, asking her not to give up. That voice belonged to this man. "How do you feel?" asked Samuel, speaking slowly. White Eagle understood some Spanish. The traders who visited her tribe spoke it, and she had learned basic words over the years. But she had never had a real conversation with anyone outside her people. "Pain," she answered, pointing to her bandaged ankle, "but alive." Samuel smiled, and that smile completely transformed his face. Suddenly, he didn't seem like a dangerous stranger, but simply a good man who was happy to see her better. "Yes," he said, "alive. The snake didn't win." White Eagle looked around, observing the small cabin. The fire still burned in the fireplace. There were furs covering her, keeping her warm, and next to the bed, a small puddle of dirty water. She realized what that meant. This man had spent the whole night caring for her, changing the wet cloths on her forehead, feeding the fire, watching over her sleep. "Thank you," said White Eagle, and although her voice was barely a whisper, the words carried the full weight of her gratitude. Samuel bowed his head. "You don't have to thank me. Anyone would have done the same." But White Eagle knew that wasn't true. Not just anyone would have stopped to help a woman from her people. Not just anyone would have risked their own journey, their own comfort, for a stranger. This man was different. The next few hours were strange and wonderful. Two people from completely opposite worlds trying to communicate with limited words, gestures, and expressions. Samuel offered her food from his supplies, dried meat and hard bread, which White Eagle accepted hungrily. Her body needed to recover strength after the battle against the venom. While she ate, they tried to converse. "My name," said Samuel, pointing to himself. "Samuel," repeated White Eagle, testing the sound on her tongue. Then she pointed to herself. White Eagle. Samuel smiled again. White Eagle, a beautiful, strong name. She felt warmth in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the fever. Through gestures and scattered words, White Eagle managed to explain why she was in the mountains. She drew in the air with her hands, mimicking small children, touching her forehead to indicate fever. Children, she said, sick, need plants. Samuel nodded, understanding. You are a healer. You came to seek medicine for your people. White Eagle didn't know the word healer, but she understood the meaning from the tone of respect in his voice. Yes, my people await me. I need to return. She saw concern cross Samuel's face. You are still weak. The venom needs more time to leave your body completely. White Eagle shook her head, trying to get up, but her arms trembled, and she fell back onto the furs. Samuel approached, helping her lie down. Please, he said softly, one more day, just one day to regain strength, then I will take you to your village myself. Their eyes met. White Eagle searched those blue eyes for any sign of deception, any hidden motive, but found only sincerity and something else, something that scared and attracted her at the same time. One day, she finally agreed. Samuel nodded, clearly relieved. The rest of the day passed in unexpected peace. Samuel went out to feed the horses and gather more wood while White Eagle rested. Every time he entered the cabin, their eyes met, and something silent passed between them. When the sun began to set again, Samuel sat by the fire and began carving a piece of wood with his knife. White Eagle watched him in silence, fascinated by the delicacy of his large hands. What are you doing? She asked. Samuel lifted the piece to show her. It was the beginning of a small figure. An eagle, he said, for you to remember this day. White Eagle felt something move in her chest, something that had no name in any language. That night, while the fire crackled and the wind sang outside, two people from different worlds slept under the same roof, and neither dreamed of being anywhere else. Dawn arrived too quickly. White Eagle woke up feeling stronger than the day before. The venom had lost its power over her. Her body responded to her will again, but her heart was another story. Samuel was already awake, preparing the horses for the journey. White Eagle watched him from the cabin window, studying each of his movements. This man had appeared out of nowhere and saved her life. He had watched over her sleep during the darkest night. He had cared for her without asking for anything in return. How could she simply say goodbye to someone like that? The horses are ready, said Samuel, entering the cabin. How do you feel? Good, answered White Eagle, ready to return. But neither of them moved. The air between them was charged with unspoken words, with feelings neither knew how to express in a language the other could fully understand. Samuel was the first to break the silence. I have something for you. From his pocket, he took out the small wooden figure he had been carving the night before. It was an eagle with wings spread, each feather carved with incredible detail. So you remember me, he said, handing it to her. White Eagle took the figure with trembling hands. It was beautiful, the most beautiful thing anyone had ever given her. She felt tears forming in her eyes, but she held them back. I will never forget, she whispered. Never. They left the cabin into the morning cold. The sun shone on the snow, making the entire landscape sparkle like a sea of diamonds. Samuel helped White Eagle mount Thunder, her faithful black horse, who had unknowingly run to fetch help. The animal neighed softly, happy to have his owner back. They rode in silence for more than an hour, following trails White Eagle knew by memory. Each step brought them closer to their destination, and each step made both their hearts heavier. When the tribal lands appeared on the horizon, White Eagle raised her hand to stop. Up to here, she said. My people do not trust strangers. It is better that they do not see you. Samuel nodded, understanding perfectly. They looked at each other in silence. There was so much to say, but no words seemed sufficient. Samuel, White Eagle began, but he interrupted her. Wait! He dismounted from his horse and approached her. From his neck he took out a leather cord with a small blue stone. It was my mother's, he explained. She told me to give it to someone special. I want you to have it. White Eagle held her breath as he placed the necklace around her neck. His fingers brushed her skin, and that simple contact sent chills through her entire body. Then she knew what she had to do. With slow movements, White Eagle removed the necklace she always wore, a turquoise and silver necklace that had belonged to her grandmother and her grandmother's mother before her. "In my people," she said with a clear voice, "giving this means something important. It means you will always be part of me, that our paths are united forever." She placed the necklace in Samuel's hands, closing his fingers around it. "When spring arrives," White Eagle continued, looking directly into his eyes, "return to the mountain where you found me. I will be waiting." Samuel looked at her with an intensity that left her breathless. "I will be there," he promised, "even if I have to cross 1,000 storms to get there." They looked at each other one last time, two people from different worlds connected by something neither could explain, but both could feel. White Eagle turned Thunder toward her village. She began to ride away slowly, resisting the urge to look back. But before she got too far, she heard a howl in the distance, and then another and another. Wolves. A whole pack emerged from among the trees, blocking the path to the village. There were at least 7, thin and hungry from the long winter. Their yellow eyes shone with deadly determination. Thunder neighed in terror, rearing up on his hind legs. White Eagle managed to stay in the saddle, but barely. The wolves began to approach, surrounding her slowly. Then she heard the sound of hooves behind her. Samuel arrived like lightning, shouting with all the strength of his lungs. In his hand he held a burning branch he had grabbed from a nearby fire. He placed himself between White Eagle and the wolves, waving the torch in wide movements. "Back!" he shouted. "Get out of here!" The wolves hesitated. Fire was their oldest enemy. One of them, the largest, jumped toward Samuel, but he dodged and struck the animal with the torch, making it retreat howling. The battle was fierce but brief. Samuel didn't give an inch. He protected White Eagle with every fiber of his being, until finally, the wolves decided that this prey wasn't worth the risk. The pack disappeared among the trees as quickly as it had arrived. Samuel turned to White Eagle, breathing heavily. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer with words. She dismounted from her horse and walked toward him, and there, under the winter sun, she did something no woman of her tribe had ever done with a foreigner. She took his face in her hands and kissed him softly on the cheek. "Spring," she whispered. "Don't forget." Then she mounted her horse and rode toward her village without looking back. Samuel stood there, motionless, touching his cheek where her lips had been. And as he watched her disappear into the distance, he knew with absolute certainty that he would count every day until spring arrived. Because some stories don't end with a goodbye. Some stories are just beginning.